Some stories aren't just about success. They're about justice. They're about the slow, patient, and meticulous construction of a fortress, built stone by stone for one single purpose: retribution. And this is one of those stories. So how does a person get from a point of total loss to a statement of absolute victory like that? How does a single moment of humiliation fuel a years-long plan for complete and total dominance? Let's uncover the architecture of this retribution, piece by piece. Our story begins, not in some fancy boardroom, but in a small house in Texas. It starts with family, with memory, and with the kind of foundation that runs way deeper than concrete. Now, this wasn't just any property. For 22-year-old Marcus and his mother, this house was a legacy. Every wall, every floorboard was a memory of his late father. It was literally the only thing they had left of him, a sanctuary built by his own two hands. But then, a devastating financial crisis hit the family, and it hit them hard. The mortgage went into default. Marcus, he was scrambling, taking on every part-time job he could find, delivery gigs, grueling warehouse shifts, but the debt was like a tidal wave and he was drowning. The outcome just felt crushing, inevitable. What followed next was more than just a financial transaction. It was an act of casual cruelty, an exercise in power that would plant the seeds of a meticulous, long-term war. First, the letter arrived, cold, official, and just final. It was the first little tremor before the earthquake. And then the date was set, a black mark on the calendar, counting down the final hours of their life in that home. This was the point of no return. On the day of the auction, a gleaming black SUV pulls up to the curb. It's this stark, predatory shadow against their humble family home. It felt like a vulture circling overhead. And out steps Richard Coleman. He wasn't just a buyer, he was an omen. Everything about him just screamed power. The expensive watch, the arrogant posture, and this cold, dismissive smile as he surveyed their loss as nothing more than his opportunity. As the auction closed and their home was officially sold, Richard took the keys. He sees Marcus's mother weeping on the sidewalk, looks over, and with this casual shrug, he utters 5 words that would seal his own fate. Business is business. Marcus didn't say a word. He just walked up to the house, placed his hand flat against the wall that his father had built, and in that silence, he made a vow. A promise not of loud revenge, but of a quiet, calculated reckoning. And just like that, Marcus Hill vanished. He didn't lash out. He didn't protest. He channeled all of that grief and rage, not into a weapon he could swing, but into the blueprint for an empire he would build. And here's the part you really have to understand: the patience. Marcus didn't explode, he started to build. He began right at the bottom, learning construction. He got his real estate license, studying at night. He mastered the art of flipping houses, buying cheap, renovating, and reselling. This wasn't a sprint, it was a slow, methodical transformation. Within 3 years, the name Marcus Hill started to mean something in the local market. He was no longer a victim, he was a player, smart, calculated, a rising force that absolutely no one saw coming. And then, the opportunity he had been building towards finally showed up. He heard a whisper in the market, a vulnerability in the empire of the man who had wronged him. Turns out, Richard Coleman's company was in trouble. Over-leveraged deals, risky loans, the foundation of his rival's empire was cracking. So Marcus began, quietly, through a bank, to buy up Coleman's struggling properties. The stage was now set. All the years of planning, of silent work, were about to culminate in a single meeting. A final confrontation where the roles of predator and prey would be permanently reversed. One of Richard Coleman's major commercial buildings was heading for foreclosure. He was desperate for a buyer, so he arranged a boardroom meeting, completely unaware of the identity of the ghost he was about to face. The boardroom door opens, and in walks Marcus Hill, dressed in a sharp suit, his face completely calm and unreadable. Richard just froze. The powerful investor from the auction was gone. In his place was a defeated, desperate man, staring at the ghost he himself had created. The power in that room didn't just shift, it shattered and reformed around Marcus. Marcus placed a file on the table. The deal was simple. He'd buy the building, but at a heavy discount. Richard had no other offers, no other choice. His signature wasn't a business transaction. It was an act of unconditional surrender. But just getting the building, that was only part of the plan. The final act was about more than property. It was about closing a painful loop with perfect poetic justice. 2 months later, there's a grand opening on the ground floor of that very same building. There's a crowd, media, a ribbon-cutting ceremony, and the new sign reads, Hill & Co. Real Estate. Watching from the cold, from a distance, was Richard Coleman, an outsider, looking in at the monument to his own failure. Marcus saw him. He walked over and spoke softly, his voice a perfect echo of the casual cruelty Richard had shown years before. Business is business. He just let those words hang in the air, a mirror to the past. Then he delivered the lesson Richard had never learned. But respect is a choice. Marcus then turned his back on him, walked over to his mother, and handed her the keys to a new, bigger, better home. And so the crucial lesson here is this. The most devastating form of revenge isn't some loud, angry outburst. It's the quiet, patient process of growing so powerful that your enemy's arrogance simply collapses under the weight of your success. It proves that true justice is a fortress you build, not a sword you swing.